Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am very happy to tell you that today we have a new guest. She's Janet.
My name is Janet Weissman. Sometimes I have my maiden name, Keller, in between, but I really only go as Janet Weissman. My YouTube channel is Janet Weissman. My website is Janet Weissman. I have been studying, been part of, or actually I say A Course in Miracles has been part of my life since 1991. It was nothing that I had heard of, but I was having lunch with a friend and I was talking and he said, "Have you read A Course in Miracles?" And I said, "What is it?" And that was the beginning of my journey with this book. And so I've been, from A Course in Miracles perspective, everyone is a student and everyone is a teacher. So I have been both of those things since 1991. And since 1998, which was when another coincidence, synchronicity, miracle happened, I've been teaching it. Some people say nobody teaches the course, that everyone facilitates it, but then they also talk about teachers of God. And so I will say that I think I am a teacher of God at this point. And in 1998, a friend of mine was teaching a Friday night class, and he wasn't able or didn't want to do it anymore. And somehow the words came out of my mouth, "Do you want me to take it over?" And he said yes. And that's one of those many times when I've looked around to see who said that. And it was me. So I've been teaching classes now since 1998. And I have 2 weekly classes on Zoom. And I have one every other week in person here in South Florida, where I live. So, and yes, there's the YouTube lessons every day on YouTube. So,
Thank you, Janet. Can you tell us a little bit more about you in the professional field?
Well, I've done a little bit of everything in some ways. I studied theater in college, but did not make a living at it. And I worked for many years in nonprofit organizations as their office manager. I retired from office work in 2019, and that's when I started my business, because I say I still work, but now I work for me. And I started my business, which is GM Dear Hearts LLC. And I do run workshops and classes, and I do spiritual counseling, guidance. I'm also a Reiki master, so I do individual Reiki sessions. And again, I have the weekly classes that I do as well. And in 2019, I wrote my book. I started my book. My book was published in 2020. And my book is called Good Morning, Dear Hearts. That's why the business is GM Dear Hearts. And I have a blog also that's called Good Morning, Dear Hearts. So.
Oh, okay. So you have your book there, like you can present it. Good Morning, Dear Hearts. Oh, okay. Very nice. What is the topic of your book exactly?
It's like the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. It's individual stories, and it's because it's about A Course in Miracles, and in that way, I try to show the spiritual part of everyday events. I mean, there's something spiritual in everything. And so if I have stories in here about being at the garden center, I have stories in here about when I lived in my house and squirrels. I have stories in here about traveling from across the country to go to a Course in Miracles conference, and how it didn't look like it was going to happen because of airplane travel, and how miraculously it all changed. And I have stories in here about my family, about my grandchildren being born. There's a story in here about my best friend. It's about just unconditional love, who she's left her body many years ago at this point. But it's little stories. And as I say, it's a nightstand book, because you can put it on your nightstand. You can pick it up. You can read something before you go to bed, and it's not going to give you nightmares. And because they're individual, you don't have to pick it up after several days and go, who was that character? Because they're all encapsulated. So it's, and people who know me say they hear my voice in it. It says it's seeing every moment in a spiritual way, and it's based on the teachings of A Course in Miracles.
Hey, very nice. So this book, where we can buy it, the book in Amazon or in your webpage, or exactly where? And do you have audiobook or not? Or it's just...
It's Kindle. On Amazon, you can get it as a print book, or you can get it on Kindle. On my website, I will then sign it and send it to you. If you're in the continental United States, it's $20, and that includes shipping and everything else. And there are some other bookseller websites that it's on. I think it's on Barnes and Noble, and then there's one, I think it's called ABE Books. So it's out there, but Amazon might be the easiest.
Okay, that is great. Thank you. So now, can you share with us why you are teaching about the Book of Miracles? What do you find there that you say, okay, I will facilitate and then I will become this teacher of God?
You know, how this came into my life, and many spiritual paths will say there's no such thing as a coincidence or a synchronicity, that everything happens exactly as it's meant to, and everything is constantly unfolding in our best interest. And just the way that this book came to me, this path came to me by someone asking me if I had read it, and the way I was speaking, they thought that I had read it, because I guess I've always felt connected to God. I do remember that from when I was a little girl, feeling that God was part of me or around me. And so once this book came into my life, this path, and as I studied it, and for so many years, I just realized the benefits that it was having in my life, how my life changed. And it wasn't like a big bang thing. It was very subtle, and just life became calmer. Life became more peaceful, no matter what was going on around me or with my family, because, you know, our families, as much as we love them, can also be a source of being upset. We worry about them. We're, you know, sometimes we fight with them because we have different viewpoints.
Yes.
All of that just was minimized. No matter what it was minimized. And when I had difficult things to go through, like a divorce, it wasn't this real traumatic event like it had been in the past before I studied this. So it's just like, I know, and I have seen through students who have come to, you know, my classes, how their lives have changed because of this. I had one woman who used to come to the Friday night group, who initially was on all kinds of antidepressants. And after studying this book for a few years, she got off of them. She didn't need them anymore. She wasn't, you know, so taken in by the world.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and
right.
I've had people who have had healing through this book. Right. You know, depression lifted. So it's just, it really is, it's a beautiful path. It's a beautiful way to live our life.
When you say you have workshops and one workshop class and things, is that like something that you pay or is different? I mean, how do you do this? How our friends can approach to you?
Individual, I do charge for individual sessions, whether it's a Reiki session or a one-on-one session. I do charge for the classes, $5, very minimal, which can be paid through my website on PayPal or Venmo or something like that. But I try to work with everyone financially. I mean, this is how I support myself these days. And although my book is, I've been told, very good, and people who've read it like it, it's not a New York Times bestseller. It's not up there. So it's not generating a lot of revenue.
No yet, let's say.
Not yet. So, yeah, so I do charge, you know, and after being involved with this for over 30 years, I don't feel like I'm gouging anyone, and I never do. And, you know, if someone really needs to work with me and they really are having financial issues, I will try to work with them to make it as easeful as possible. So.
Thank you. Okay, very nice. So to continue with the Book of Miracles and what is this change in people and what is doing, yes, I will make some questions about it, and I hope they make sense. How the book is approaching to these miracles is approaching from the teachings of Jesus Christ, or the teaching of the Catholic Church, or what is this? Because when you say miracle,
right. Okay. First of all, the way that this book came into being is its own story. Okay. And there are some books that have been written about it. The first one that I read, when someone asked me if I knew about the Course in Miracles, I said, no, what is it? And they told me to read this book called Journey Without Distance. And it's how this book came into the world. It is a channeled book, a scribed book. The voice that spoke and the woman who wrote everything down, her name was Helen Schuckman. The voice identified itself as Jesus. Okay. Helen was an atheist, so that was a little bit of a surprise to her, as you can imagine. The book, when we talk about a miracle from this perspective, it is a shift in perception. It is seeing something differently. It is raising the veils that are between us and our brother, or us and everyone else, or everything else. That's it's important. We want to see things differently. So from a Course in Miracles perspective, it says miracles are our birthright. Like, we're meant to be able to live in this world and to see things differently. And it also tells us that God wants us to be happy, which I know is different from the Catholic Church, because my mother was Catholic. And when I was little, I was taken to the Catholic Church. And I left the Catholic Church when I was 6 because they wouldn't let me make First Holy Communion.
Okay.
So I've dabbled in different religions over my life. And I more or less have settled on Judaism, but I only follow the traditions and the holidays with that at this point. This is my path. A Course in Miracles is my path. And the truth is, every religion has this message at its core. Because the message at the core of A Course in Miracles is that God loves you and all brothers are one. Okay, the message is that, we're all brothers, we're all one. And you can take it back to the golden rule in the Bible of do unto others as we would have others do unto us. That's A Course in Miracles. It is that simple. That doesn't mean that it is simple for us to do. But one of the things that they say about A Course in Miracles is that it's simple in its message. It just isn't easy to practice because we have taken on so many erroneous, false beliefs about ourselves and about our brothers, that to be able to see everyone with the light that is in them is very difficult. But when we do, when we can start seeing that, and it may not even be actually seeing it, but it'll be feeling it, that that animosity towards other people or anger towards other people all of a sudden is much less.
Okay.
A Course in Miracles is not a religion, and there are people who come to my classes who are Catholic.
Yes.
And they maintain their Catholic practice. They go to Mass, and they also study A Course in Miracles. So it's not saying that if you do this, you can't do anything else, because this is not a religion. There are many organizations that seem to be trying to make it into one, but it is not. It is a path. It's not a religion. And I'm very vehement about that, because I don't. It's not meant to be that. Yeah. What are the other things about A Course in Miracles? It says that all paths that lead to enlightenment are to be honored. Because this isn't my way or the highway kind of thing. And it doesn't work for everyone. Not everyone will resonate with it. But that means, well, now I'm doomed. No,
exactly.
There's something else. There's something else to explore. There's something else to look into.
How our mind can stay in touch with life, I mean, with Earth, with our everyday duties, if we tell and repeat to our mind that everything is an illusion.
So there is this world that I experience every day. And if I am experiencing it through my ego, okay, of course tells us our mind is split. And it's a lower mind and a higher mind. The higher mind is that part of us that's always in touch with God. Our lower mind is our ego mind that's always out thinking someone's out to get us. And we look at this world as a dangerous place. That's not the world I want to be in. Okay. But there's a couple of lessons that we're coming up to shortly. There are, for those who don't know, there's 365 lessons. So it's shockingly the same as the days of the year. Just suggested, perhaps. But there's a lesson that says the world I see holds nothing that I want. But the next lesson is there is a world beyond this world. There is a world I want. And the world I want is the one that is filled with light and kindness. Of course, also tells us, we think about heaven, and we think about heaven as someplace you go to after you've dropped the body. A Course in Miracles says heaven is here. This is heaven. There's no other place, and there's no other time. So heaven is here right now. Whether or not I'm experiencing it, well, that's up to me. There's a section of the text that talks about the happy dream, that this is all a dream, this is all an illusion, but I can go into the happy dream, which I get there by forgiveness. I get there by seeing the light in my brother. I get there by not taking on any more grievances against anyone and get rid of the ones that I have, so that I'm freeing up my mind and I'm freeing up my heart. So I feel that I can connect with anyone and everyone, because God is everywhere. God is absolutely everywhere. And he's waiting for us to recognize that.
Right.
Okay.
So
you know, everything is for our own best interest. How can I use, you know, how can I use this cup? How can I, you know, use my phone, my book, my desk, my pen? How can I use it in a spiritual way? And the reason for everything is to end the idea of separation between me and everyone else. So how can I use this pen in a spiritual way? And I think in the lesson the other day, it was about a pencil. I said, I can write a love note with it. You know, I can be extending love. We're always either extending love or projecting fear.
Okay.
And from this perspective, there's only two things that are ever going on. One is fear and one is love. One isn't real, the fear, but we've invested an awful lot into the idea that fear is real. You know, there's an acronym, you probably know it, for fear. That is false evidence appearing real. It's been around for decades.
Oh, God.
Yeah, decades, okay? But if you haven't heard it, bam, okay.
Well, in English, yes. In Spanish, not coming,
Okay.
but it's okay. Yes.
But that's what fear is. It's false evidence. And even Einstein said there's only two ways to look at the world. One is everything is a miracle, or the other that nothing is a miracle. So we look at the world like Einstein, everything's a miracle. Even if I don't understand it, I let it be, because at some point I will understand it.
Okay. So